What's up? I'm Alise, and this is Tarot, where tarot isn't just guidance, it's exploration. And here, we dive into fantasy worlds, mythic timelines, and story-based readings you genuinely can't. And today's reading is one of my personal favorites so far. I've been working on it for a minute. It's called Your Dark Fantasy Arranged Marriage. Who doesn't love a messy, dramatic, slow burn, borderline, dangerous romance? Exactly. This is speculative fantasy, timeline, or world where you exist as a character with a destiny of your own, unrelated to the life you're living now. Here's the structure, okay? First, we'll build the world you inhabit, the political landscape, the culture, the environment, and the forces that shaped your fate alongside who or what opposes you, aka the antagonist. Second, we'll dive into who your dark, edgy, morally questionable betrothed is. Okay, their archetype, their reputation. Third, we'll uncover why this marriage is arranged in this fantasy world. We'll look at the tension, the stakes, the danger, and the consequences, okay? And finally, a synopsis on your love story. Creative writing, courtesy of moi. We'll look at how your relationship unfolds in that world and story and what draws you two together despite the circumstances. And if you like readings that feel like novels or alternative universe storylines, go ahead and subscribe because you're in the right place. And if you see a reading like this anywhere else, just remember you saw it here first, okay? So grab a snack, relax your mind, and when you're ready, choose your pile. Yo, right quick, this is pre-reading Alise, breakfast Alise. Before we begin your pile, I just want to give a quick note about how this reading came together. This reading is something that I worked on over months, going back and forth, returning to, leaving, returning to, and I did quite a few spreads to build out each pile story and world. So you may notice that I don't always directly mention specific cards you may see on the screen or every element that was pulled. Just know that the energy is incorporated from those spreads. It will be integrated into your interpretation. Again, it's just that I stepped away, I returned, and all that. So when you do some things a little disorganized, it may not look that way when you finish. But I promise you, it is. Everything that I picked up for each pile is actually integrated into the pile. That's just the nature of working on something a little bit more complex. Originally as well, it was the plan to release this reading and then also release, of course, the video portion here, and then release an extended 18 plus short story reading on my Tarot website about the first night between you and your betrothed. So the consummation of the marriage within your story, so you will. So the extended will be available. I don't know when. I'm working on it right now. I don't know when, but let me know in the comments, shout out, make requests, and maybe I'll actually, pump that ish out. So other than that, let's continue into your pile. So let's begin with the world building for you, pile 1. I made a 6-card spread to get a feel of the environment you'll be in. You should be able to see the picture I took of all the pre-shuffled cards for each spread on your screen. So for position 1, I asked, what type of government does this land have? And I got the 10 of Wands reversed. The 10 of Wands reversed symbolizes a breakdown, the collapse of yourself, or a responsibility you were shouldering. This can be due to a loss of stamina, or simply abandoning what you're doing because you no longer care about it. With this in mind, the land we're exploring may have a government run by the incompetent, the irresponsible, or leaders who no longer care. The government itself could already have been in collapse or be virtually non-existent at the point of your story. With the card imagery, you can see that upright, the wands are piled on top of this beetle, while a smaller beetle climbs to the top. This could represent a society built on the backs of the larger populace, where resources and people were exploited by a small elite who sought to climb to the top without consideration for others. And because of this, the government has no structure or order to it. The toothpicks have spilled out of the box and scattered onto the floor. Now, for position 2, we have who's in charge. And the cards here are the Chariot reverse alongside the Trickster archetype card. The Chariot reverse points to an individual who is virtually powerless, someone who has lost their sense of direction as a leader and for some reason can't steer the ship forward. Whatever goal they have in mind, they're not going to reach it. And with the Trickster card, we see the light attribute, saying it transcends convention, stuffiness, and predictable behavior. This energy feels like the situation with this person in power is unconventional. Do we have a monarch who is incapacitated, lying on their deathbed, while all decisions are being made by a proxy, even as the population believes they're still in good health? Or perhaps the person in charge is someone who transcends this society's traditions altogether. Considering this is a society in chaos from the Ten of Wands, maybe someone has taken a desperate power grab in an attempt to restore order, but they themselves lack the confidence, the support, and resources to lead the region through its most challenging time. With the Trickster here, I don't read the energy as malicious. It feels more desperate, shaky, and improvisational. So I'm leaning toward this being someone who was close enough to the old monarch or leader, but who has never been in such a high position themselves, never taken seriously in such a role. Now, let me explain why. If this were a true ruling authority, we likely would see a king or a queen, or even the emperor or the empress. Instead, this feels like someone everyone is side-eyeing, thinking, okay, like this won't last long, or they don't know what they're doing, you know? And yet, when societies collapse, power struggles are constant, which is why the Chariot shows up reversed. However, with the Trickster being unconventional, it might actually work as an advantage to them. With the Chariot, there could be some warrior undertones, but I'm not strongly picking up that this person is like that. Ultimately, this is someone who genuinely wants to move things forward, but they lack the follow through or the confidence and powers to do so. So for position 3, what are the people like? We pulled the Page of Swords reversed and the Poet card reversed. These are people you can't trust or who feel like they can't trust each other or their government or the ruling class. We all know the Page upright is a fresh youth, ready to learn about the world and fight injustice because they're inspired to do so. But reversed, in this context, the people of this land don't come off as welcoming. In fact, they're very rude, suspicious of one another and of foreigners. They may feel defeated and apathetic regarding current events and news, and also a bit uneducated as well. I think people have a lot of harmful and negative things to say about this society and those running it. So they may feel they know better than everyone else, regardless of their ignorance. Sure, it's possible they make healthy critiques of their environment, but their delivery is often harsh and bitter. The Poet reverse reinforces this. In its shadow form, it speaks of using the gift of voice for destructive purposes. So these people, they're not very nice, not very happy, and prone to spreading gossip and rumors that further aid the collapse of the society that they belong to. So position 4, what's the physical environment like? We got the Lovers. This is interesting because the previous cards show the society in turmoil, yet the land itself is harmonious and interconnected. In the card, you can see how the man and woman are tied together by a red thread. The environment could have the same dual nature, where choice matters heavily in how you interact with the ecosystem. When I think of the Lovers, I think of the Garden of Eden. So this land could be extremely fertile and thriving, almost like Avatar, like it's a spiritual world that treats you how you treat it, one that should be considered sacred. For position 5, what type of technology do we have here? We pulled the 8 of Pentacles reversed for your pile. Here's where it gets really interesting. I had drawn some additional world building features out of a bowl, and one of them was modern technology. But this reversal makes me think the tech is broken or inaccessible. Think cracked screens, maybe failing power plants if they had plants in general, or a broken grid, power grid. Some things work, others don't. Okay, all from a world that once functioned, but then it collapsed in on itself, and it feels like their text is like a mix of modern day objects we recognize plus adaptations unique to the environment itself. For example, it makes me think of Republic City and Legend of Korra. Sometimes the tech looks even older than ours. Sometimes you see clever adaptations, and at other times you feel like the world is spiritually, or the technology and spirituality is connected. Like, we don't exactly have a metal giant blasting spirit energy from its chest like Legend of Korra, but there is some kind of interconnectedness. So if that makes sense, I'm getting that technology is broken or inaccessible from the past, yet it is modern enough for people to live comfortably. Position 6. Where and who are you in this society? We pulled the Empress reversed, and the Orator reversed, and the Damsel reversed, which is the gas, because, like, what are you doing showing up as the Empress reversed? The Damsel literally says you're waiting for a knight in shining armor to save you. The Empress reversed isn't just about insecurity. She can feel unfeminine or undesired, or act as a people pleaser to her own detriment. And when combined with these other cards, we're looking at someone who severely lacks confidence in their role or life. And here's the twist. Like, that's you, right? You're the one currently in charge. So it just kind of surprised me with pulling these cards. Perhaps you succeeded someone whose actions led to the collapse of the environment, and now the world doesn't want to acknowledge your legitimacy. Or maybe your very presence in this seat of power has become a part of the problem. The Orator reversed drives this home. Someone, perhaps even you, is saying things that aren't necessarily true. Words meant to appease rather than heal. And white lies may keep the peace in the moment, but soon you yourself will be entangled in your own web. Honesty is the best policy, and when spoken well, even a hard truth doesn't have to be unbearable. So, you could be a figurehead, saying and doing whatever to maintain your stability, or maybe you never wanted power at all, and you feel unprepared, letting others with different agendas steer the ship forward. Either way, you may be afraid of speaking authentically, too hesitant to take a stand, which lets others take control and advantage. And that lines up perfectly with the Damsel reversed. And remember, those two features I pulled from the bowl, like, I got isolated village and 100 years of peace, okay? That narrows this down beautifully. We're not looking at a sprawling empire. It's no larger than a settlement, maybe even cut off from the wider world. They've had a century of peace and now suddenly face a crisis they weren't prepared for. Resources are scarce, leadership is fractured, and here you are, an unconventional leader whose presence may be stirring up mistrust, gossip, and instability. So here's how I would describe the world we're stepping into here. This is a land living in the aftermath of betrayal. Long ago, the earth itself was known to be fully conscious, not a resource, not a backdrop, but a living, aware entity that once worked with humanity. There was a time when people understood this, a time when stewards existed, emissaries who could commune with the land and guide humanity to live in balance. But most of them lost their way. Power was abused, nature was manipulated to feed greed, expansion, excess, and eventually the earth withdrew its consent. It didn't destroy humanity, it just turned its back. The surface of the earth became hostile, unpredictable, untouchable. Humanity survived by retreating into enclosures, isolated settlements carved out of necessity, sealed off from the elements. Technology advanced just enough to keep people alive, but not enough to make life abundant. Resources are scarce. Systems are fragile. Everything works until it doesn't. This is a world held together by patchwork solutions and fading hope. Your region, however, is different. Your land was spared once. One of the last true stewards came from your bloodline. Unlike the others, they honored restraint. They didn't try to control the earth, okay? They listened. And for that, the land allowed peace. For nearly 100 years, your village lived in relative harmony while the rest of the world fractured. But when that steward died, the knowledge died with them. What remained was a legacy others were quick to exploit. Now, leadership here is hollow. Authority exists, more in title than in substance. Power is held by someone never meant to carry it, and a system already collapsing under its own weight. And the people feel it. The atmosphere is beginning to poison the lungs of the people. Crops are slowly rotting the people's flesh from the inside out. They're suspicious, bitter, and sharp-tongued. Trust has eroded. Gossip spreads faster than the truth. Everyone believes they know what's wrong, but no one agrees on how to fix it. Beneath the rot, beneath the family tech and social decay, the environment remains fertile and alive. It responds to intention. It mirrors how it's treated. Harmony is still possible here, but only if honored properly. This place is less of a kingdom and more of a living test. And at the center of it all stands you. You hold power, but you don't feel powerful. You wear the crown, but you don't trust yourself to lead. You show up here as the Empress reverse, disconnected from your own authority, unsure of your own worth, and afraid to speak fully or act decisively. Whether you inherited this position or were forced into it, you are seen as legitimate by title and doubted in spirit. Some look to you with hope, others with resentment. Many are waiting for you to fail. Your village is isolated, unprepared, and standing on the edge of collapse after a century of peace. And what no one fully realizes, not even you yet, is that the potential to become a true steward still exists within you. The power was never gone, just the knowledge. The question isn't whether this world can be saved. It's just whether you're willing to reclaim the role you were never taught how to hold. So let's get into who the sexy dark man you would be married to in the story is. Let's talk about the man you're bound to, the dark, the dangerous figure who becomes your husband in the story, and why. Okay, we have death clarified by the Two of Pentacles reversed, the Fool reversed with the Three of Pentacles, and the King of Pentacles clarified by strength. Okay, traits from the index cards mark him as a cold but gentle, possessive yet patient individual. From the very first card, Death, it's clear he has scorpionic energy. Okay, he is enigmatic, veiled, and impossible to read. His silence hides a vast inner world that churns like deep water, and his love, when it manifests, is consuming. His shadow is jealousy and possession, yet he wields it with control, making his intensity feel like a chain and a shelter at the same time. Death, with the Two of Pentacles reversed, shows he enters your life as a harbinger of transformation. You and your people teeter at the edge of ruin, and he arrives with the ruthless efficiency to sweep away what is broken and rebuild from the ash. But his methods are not bloodless. In the cards, a key dangles from his fingers while a skull drips blood into the soil, birthing a flower. He is the key to your survival, yes, but survival comes at a cost. His history is written in blood, and his presence demands sacrifice, your autonomy, your authority, perhaps even your heart. The Fool reversed with the Three of Pentacles paints him as deadly serious. He is not a man for whims or play. He follows an unyielding code, guided by knowledge others cannot grasp. He knows how to use people as pieces on a board, but also how to cultivate loyalty and prosperity by rewarding those who serve him. Like the pentacles seeding the soil, his actions make life sprout again where there once was famine. Twice now, we've seen plants bloom from his hand in these cards. He carries the skill, the resources, and determination to feed your starving people, to save them. He becomes their savior, even if he is also a conqueror. Then we see the King of Pentacles with strength. Here stands a man who has built an empire among ruins, who holds endless resources, who knows the power of the earth and how to command it. Wheat and barley beneath strength reinforce the role he will play, saving your people from famine, taming the land, restoring abundance. But the King of Pentacles is the most traditional ruler of all, and his offer comes with strings. In this arranged marriage, he binds you to him not only to save your people, but also to remind you that all prosperity will flow from his hand. What was once sacred and free now becomes subject to his control. He approaches you as both salvation and prison. More about him: his coldness is like a mask. With bully reversed, his hard edge is a tactic to hide fear. With hedonist reversed, two truths surface. He despises waste with every fiber of his being, and he will not tolerate frivolity. He values the earth's gifts, though others may only see a calculating conqueror. And in the dark of your chambers, he is a lover whose intensity borders on merciless. He takes you again and again, too hard, too often, until your body aches with his possession. Yet afterwards, he softens, laying you in silken sheets, bringing you fruit to your lips, ordering servants to wash and tend to you. His aftercare is as overwhelming as his passion. He plays with you, devours you, then restores you as if sculpting you into something he owns and adores. He grew up beneath a mother who praised another child, leaving him hungry for recognition. Sibling rivalry burned into him a need to prove his worth, driving him into the workaholic king he is today. Every triumph is not just for his people, it's to silence the ghosts of his childhood. This is your dark husband, cold and inscrutable, yet burning with possessive devotion. To others, he's just the conqueror. To you, he's the key, the prison, and the hand that both ruins and saves. So tell me, Pile 1, in the comments how you showing up in this story is a reflection of your life at the moment. Play around with the name of this mysterious and magnetic husband of yours and how you feel about him. Maybe, just maybe, I will write an 18+ short story reading for my Tello Plus members about the night you finally consummate your marriage. So now let's get into the opposition, because every story needs opposition. Who's the antagonist? We have the alchemist reversed and the hound, as well as the oppressor, also plague bringer and obsessed with you. How dark. With the hound card, this is someone you have made a promise to, a deal. However, you were likely coerced into this deal. Something about the terms and conditions are hidden behind a smokescreen. Now, this antagonist has their own power. Not only do they run a tight and oppressive ship, but they know a thing or two about the magic of your world. However, we face two possible scenarios. Either they are like you, someone with the ability to tap into earth magic, or they have obtained the lost knowledge you lack, but are twisting and manipulating it for their own agenda. And with the antagonist in your dark fantasy story also finding themselves obsessed with you, I believe, Pile 1, that among all three of the piles for this reading, you are faced with a complex scenario. One where your new husband is your opposition, if not your full-on enemy. With the Plaguebringer, his activity and regime could be making things worse for the world, and you end up fighting him every step of the way to change for the betterment of all. Or maybe he is a plague on you, somehow tainting your magic or spirit as a cold and calculating influence. So to finish up this reading, let's get into the final part, which is your actual love story. We have 2 of Swords clarified by 7 of Swords, 7 of Pentacles reversed with the Hierophant, High Priestess reversed with 3 of Wands reversed, Strength with the Queen of Cups reversed, and the Fool reversed with the Wheel of Fortune reversed. This is where we get into the synopsis that I wrote with some creative writing skills. In a realm where humanity once held a sacred communion with the natural world, ruins of civilizations rot beneath blankets of volatile greenery. Nature lives and breathes while snuffing out humanity in an act of self-preservation. Paranoia grows, children starve, and the whispers grow louder. The earth's wrath must be appeased for the sake of all. You are the chosen sacrifice. Heir to a bloodline of ancient earth magic, you are blamed for the world's decay. To the people, you are a curse whose death will restore balance. It was your kind's misuse of their gifts that caused the collapse long ago, and it was nature's mercy that blessed your village with a century of peace. But salvation arrives not in mercy, but at the hands of a foreign society. Ultimately, you're dragged kicking and screaming into a new form of captivity. A surviving human society hidden deep within a mountainous cave system. Their leader? A man as brutal and cold as nuclear winter. To secure his aid and the resources needed to save your village, you are given to him as a bride. Among his people, you find he is whispered to be both savior and tyrant. His armies march with fire. His laws bend to his will, and his touch burns with possession. Bound to him in a marriage of survival, you resist the man who cages you, even as you find yourself drawn to the relentless will behind his cold command. To the world, you're a scapegoat. To him, you're its last hope. But to the spirit of the world itself, maybe yet another lost lamb hiding a wolf within. All right, y'all, let me know what you thought about this reading, and we'll see a lot more content like this, only if you like and subscribe. Of course, practice makes perfect, but if you give me the opportunity to make more content, it'll only get better from here. I'll see you guys in a new reading. Bye. Yo, right quick, this is pre-reading Alise, breakfast Alise. Before we begin your pile, I just want to give a quick note about how this reading came together. This reading is something that I worked on over months, going back and forth, returning to, leaving, returning to, and I did quite a few spreads to build out each pile's story and world. So you may notice that I don't always directly mention specific cards you may see on the screen, or every element that was pulled. Just know that the energy is incorporated from those spreads. It will be integrated into your interpretation. Again, it's just that I stepped away, I returned, and all that. So when you do some things a little disorganized, it may not look that way when you finish. But I promise you, it is. Everything that I picked up for each pile is actually integrated into the pile. That's just the nature of working on something a little bit more complex. Originally as well, it was the plan to release this reading and then also release, well, of course, the video portion here, and then release an extended 18 plus short story reading on my Tarot website about the first night between you and your betrothed. So the consummation of the marriage within your story, so you will. So the extended will be available. I don't know when. I'm working on it right now. I don't know when, but let me know in the comments, shout out, make requests, and maybe I'll actually, pump that ish out. So other than that, let's continue into your pile. So let's begin with position number 1. Which kind of government does this setting have in your story? For this, we have the Hierophant card. This tells us the land has a very traditional and structured form of authority. There is an institutional hierarchy whose rules and laws are established from an old document or text, and they may not have changed in a very long time. With the Hierophant, this could mean a theocracy where there's no separation of church and state, or whatever religious or spiritual hegemony saturates the land. This could also represent a council of priests or priestesses, a papal rulership, or a monarchy where the ruler is seen as the head of the church, religion, or spiritual order. Overall, this is a very conservative and traditional nation that doesn't like to deviate from the norm. However, you could also assume that they value education and knowledge. For position 2, we have who's in charge. Here we pulled the Knight of Swords. This likely represents a young masculine leader with warrior-like qualities. In a dark fantasy sense, this could be someone who participates in sparring or has fought for their position, disregarding the bloodshed because of their own ambitions. This person has military experience and a strong sense of leadership, strong leadership qualities, but they can also be impulsive, rebellious, or one-track minded. We also have the King archetype card in the upright. This suggests that the young masculine is also benevolent, but notice how the card also says enlightened, and how in your pile's image we see a halo around the male. This could very well represent a young king chosen by a council of wise sages, priests, or another powerful group using spiritual or religious rites and traditions, with his courage, strength, and honesty being the deciding factors. However, I do think this ruling structure is going to have a problem with him because the Knight of Swords is a very progressive individual. They may assume he will submit to their agenda, but he won't if he doesn't fully believe in it. We also pulled the wise one reversed, which is intriguing. The booklet meaning says conforming to social structures provides a reliable basis for development, but you may be feeling particularly restricted by the rules you've embraced until now. This suggests a breaking of the mold, but done sensibly. So this leader could have a backstory of conforming to the society's hegemony from birth, but now he's like lived some life and achieved power. He feels conflicted, torn between conformity and authenticity. But with the reversal, it also suggests that those around him may deem him unwise because of his refusal to follow the pack or be sheep. Moving on to position 3, we ask what the people are like, or the general population. Here we have 7 of Cups reversed. A lot of the time, the 7 of Cups reversed points to the querent experiencing a reality check or gaining clarity after a fog. However, with the surrounding energy showing us a world of like strict traditions and social order, the 7 of Cups reversed is showing us how the people themselves feel the effects. This is a collective that doesn't have many options or opportunities to deviate from the norm. Many may be comfortable with this, but for those who aren't, it could feel like suffocating or very controlling. What's interesting as well is that in the deck I used, the upright 7 of Cups shows a castle, a sturdy structure above, and beneath it at different levels are each of the cups, like holding an animal inside. This feels like perfect symbolism. Even at the highest levels, people may be trapped within the order of said level. Differences may not be celebrated or valued. Each animal is trapped in the same glass, only at different levels. And intuitively, this 7 of Cups is also giving me like a hazy, dazed energy, as though the masses don't really know why certain rules exist or what the ruling agenda truly is. And let's face it, not everyone is a critical thinker. Humans are wired for social survival, in-group versus out-group mentality. And in a hierophant structured society, the out-group may suffer isolation and judgment. So these citizens might find it easier to submit and trust whatever is in power or what's being told to them. Or it could be that those in power know how to disseminate knowledge in a way that serves their agenda and isn't easily challenged. Now for position number 4, we ask what the physical environment's like. Here we have the 10 of Wands reversed. From a little world building bowl of features and characteristics, I also drew like 4 scraps of paper. They said futuristic city, sky city, massive fortress, and indigenous American influences. With the 10 of Wands reversed, I'm getting a situation similar to pile 1. They also had 10 of Wands reversed, though for their government. But, for their story, we tied it to a society in collapse because the world was dying. But in your case, the 10 of Wands reversed applies to the physical environment. Paired with sky city, futuristic city, and massive fortress, I bet the land below is ravaged, it's lawlessness and resource scarce. Perhaps the valleys are scorched by natural disasters with monsters and men alike scouring the earth and fighting for their next meal or power. Meanwhile, above in the clouds is a high-tech floating city, a fortress, haven of structured order, that hierophant stuff. Maybe the world below survives off that city's waste, following this floating sky city like nomadic vermin. Or maybe the society exists at a high elevation in a mountainous region veiled by fog and clouds, their fortress carved into the mountain itself. The city was founded as a protected haven. Either way, what lies below is chaos. What hides in the clouds is or the mountains is intact. Whether they are thriving is another question. For position 5, we ask what type of technology they have. We already have insight that their tech is futuristic, but here we have the 10 of Pentacles reversed. You would expect a structured society to have abundant technology for its time, but instead we see bankruptcy, loss, or misapplication of technology. The 10 of Pentacles upright is another legacy and tradition card, but reversed, it signifies the collapse of an empire. Speaking in technological terms, this suggests they thrived on traditional technologies in the past, but those were abandoned, misused or warped, leaving what remains weaponized or applied in like harmful ways. This reversal also suggests disconnection from the old ways and their ancestry. This ties perfectly into the indigenous American influences. You may resonate personally with indigenous culture or simply that their influence plays a role in this story. Indigenous traditions often emphasize like stewardship of the earth and balance with the natural world, values that stand in stark contrast to exploitation. So in this reading, I believe this element highlights how these ancestral values may surface as an important influence later, especially in a setting where the environment is already depleted. Finally, for the position number 6, which represents who you are, your role, your place in the world, we have the Nine of Pentacles reversed, the Alchemist, the Adventurer, the Walker reversed, and an index card that says from a bustling city. Instantly, the Nine of Pentacles reversed and the Adventurer points to a conflicted identity or even a crisis of identity. The Nine of Pentacles reversed suggests dependence on someone else for resources or stability. It can describe someone superficial or someone who marries for money. Considering the world you're in, this may point to the circumstances of your arranged marriage or simply how you feel with such a rigid society. Remember how we noted earlier that the people of this land may be like sheep, not questioning the ruling class's agenda? Well, now we know resources are scarce, okay? Infrastructure is worn and the physical world itself is degraded. This fortress in the sky or mountains likely controls the distribution of resources tightly, and you yourself may feel its effects. With the Nine of Pentacles reversed, you may belong to the lower caste, poor and living in a crowded slum, or your arranged marriage could be a trade. You gain stability while your betrothed gains something else in return. Looking at the Alchemist card, we see that you are someone with extensive knowledge, especially spiritual and mystical knowledge. In this world, you create and produce in ways that seem unusual to the average person. Even if your work is based on in science or the natural world, it manifests with supernatural results or in supernatural quantities. There's a saying in sci-fi, high technology at some point can be indistinguishable from magic to the normal or average person. But since this is a fantasy setting, this suggests you are truly a mystic, a witch, or a mage. Overall, you wield magic, you are magic. With the Walker reversed and Adventurer, I get the sense that your focus lies more with the world outside the four walls that you occupy. You long to explore beyond your immediate surroundings. This is where that identity crisis, cuts deep. You'd rather navigate the wider world, but you've been thrust into responsibilities you don't want. So with me mentioning that other people have needs and you feel constricted, let's actually dive into the wants, needs, or motivations of the other characters in this story, which are just going to be your betrothed and also the antagonist of this story. We're also going to look at, your wants, motivations, and fears as well, because you are the main character here. For your wants, fears, and motivations, we have in that respective order the Wheel of Fortune reversed, King of Cups reversed, and the Three of Cups. So you want the external world to be disrupted and maybe go back to the old ways. These changes to everyone else may feel like a massive upheaval that sparks chaos and a loss of control, but you're perfectly fine with that. You fear emotional manipulation, especially manipulation as a scheme to make you codependent or leash you with the King of Cups reversed. This specifically could have to do with your betrothed. In an arranged marriage, you most likely don't know that person very well, and you may fear this husband, wherever the heck they came from, could hurt you, deceive you, or simply not give it. You may question if they plan to discard you once they have what they want from you. You bind yourself to this man and you're beheaded that night, or locked away for the rest of your life at the abuse and torment of his people. But just to ease your mind here, let's actually dive into who this betrothed is. First, I asked for traits and features. We have Judge reversed and Poet reversed. Instantly, with Poet reversed, this person puts their foot in their mouth all the time. I feel that with the birds flying out of the woman's mouth in the card, the words just like fly out without thought. Judge reversed is here and like, wow, we have a deviant as well on our hands. And I guess because it says offering only destructive criticism, misusing business, legal or criminal authority. So like, who are y'all marrying? Let's really see, because first few cards aren't really helping this narrative. This person has no problem bending and breaking the law to get what they want. Would he mobilize an army without approval because you're in danger? I think so. Would he ignore trivial laws of the old senile council and give his own orders? Of course, that's a given. Would he break custom by grazing your soft skin and kissing your neck tenderly or yet possessively in front of everyone instead of waiting for the wedding rites? Yup. Would he commit sacrilege by taking you inside the city's sacred temple against the altar because he can't take one more second of your intoxicating presence? Hell yeah! Hell yeah. The index cards state that this guy is ambitious, so he will go after what he wants. He does have a jealous streak, so be careful who you let get too close, and he is in fierce competition with a sibling. Pile 1 also got that. He also comes from a nomadic culture that doesn't stay in one area. With the Sky City trait and with this world, maybe his people orbit the Earth at the edge of space, or their city wanders the skies with the ever-shifting clouds, or if he is from down below, his people may follow herds of animals for hunting, or they may just follow the seasons. Just because there is futuristic technology doesn't mean everyone has access to it. Here, it looks like your betrothed is also from a war-torn country. But bigger question, why are you guys arranged to be married anyway? We have the 8 of Pentacles clarified by 6 of Wands, 4 of Wands reversed clarified by 9 of Cups reversed, and the Wheel of Fortune clarified by 9 of Pentacles. And oh, how I love how energies pop up in one place and point to themselves in another. This is a marriage that starts off strictly professional. There is a sense here that you guys are coming together to craft a victory or success through very hard work. This alliance is strategic and meant to showcase a victory. He gains prestige and you gain survival, and together you symbolize prosperity. Now, this marriage is not going to be a happy union at first. You're both marrying off because there is a need for whatever collapse or unrest to be soothed, settled over, regardless of how superficial it is. But overall, there is a shared destiny placed upon this union, and it's to bring the world around you into a more abundant future. What are his wants, motivations, and fears? We have 4 of Swords, Fool reversed, Knight of Swords reversed. Your betrothed wants peace, calm, and tranquility, which probably surprised you, huh? They don't want fighting or chaos. Even though they're quick to scrap, they don't. They fear a new chapter of life or society that they may lack faith or belief in. And on the other hand, they may fear being viewed as reckless or too immature or unwise to occupy their own place in life and society. They're afraid of making a life-changing, irrational choice that the world will deem foolish. What motivates them is the Knight of Swords reversed, which I think is a reflection of their fears. Knight of Swords reversed is too forceful and aggressive when initiating the changes he wants. He's the person who doesn't think things through, blinded by his conviction, and leads others into harm's way because of the horse blinders he has on. And I think your betrothed is afraid that people are going to see him this way if he deviates from the standard path or makes a choice that will be uncomfortable in the short term, but that he believes will bring benefits and change in the long term. But let's get into who the antagonist is as well, or the opposition in your story, because every story needs opposition. We have the Lovers reversed, the Exorcist reversed, the Cartographer, and DIY Disaster. The Exorcist reversed is someone who fears facing their own demons. What's interesting is that the person in the card is indigenous looking. So again, you could be indigenous or have that heritage or just be connected to it right now in your life. The cartographer reverse also says this person currently finds themselves at a crossroads. They want something new, but their doubts cause them to hesitate in making that change. What's at stake is that the path they want to take can lead them, or the world, into something beautiful or into something unknown and destructive. This person has a lot of inner conflicts and uncertainty. What's cool is we also have the DIY disaster card, and in it you can see a worn bookshelf, which shows that this person has a lot of knowledge. They've read a lot, they're well studied, they've gone to school, or could be a teacher themselves. And with the word DIY, it makes me think that maybe they do have like a do-it-yourself mentality, and maybe a treasure trove of like recipes, blueprints, and old text from the looks of the card. Plus, we received in an index card, because I drew index cards for these traits and features, that this person literally has a secret education. So this antagonist in your story knows things you don't, and they may weaponize that against you. I mean, they will. How do I know? Because another index card says that they're manipulative. So this person cannot be trusted. They will use their knowledge to further their agenda, and they don't mind leveraging what you know and don't know for their own goals. This person also has braided hair, apparently, and a bold personality. Now with the lovers reversed, what they want is simply for a story like this, they don't want you or your betrothed to come into union. Whether you know it or not, you and your spouse are connected by a red string of fate. You could be two twin halves of one soul, both opposites of a half that are meant to complement one another. What you have, the other lacks, and vice versa. And when you two come together, something becomes complete or stronger, and this antagonist doesn't want to see that happen. Now, what do they fear? The sun reversed. And I think they may fear their own unhappiness, their own failure, and most of all, overexposure. What motivates them, though, is the Empress reversed. And they're motivated by a lack of abundance, scarcity, and disharmony. And with the physical environment of the world being one that is completely collapsed and nearly obliterated, maybe they suffer from infertility and malnourishment. So let's summarize what we know so far for you, Pile 2. For this pile, your story takes place in a setting in a highly traditional and structured society ruled by strict institutions and ancient doctrine. Government operates much like a theocracy, where religion, tradition, and law are deeply intertwined. Rules are inherited from old texts and customs that haven't changed in generations, making this nation very resistant to change. The leader of this society appears to be a young king or warrior figure. He's courageous, ambitious, and capable, but also progressive and rebellious in ways that make the ruling council uneasy. While he was raised to follow tradition, he now finds himself conflicted between obeying the system and pursuing what he believes is right. The general population lives under this rigid social order. Many people simply accept the rules without questioning them, while others feel trapped by expectations and limited choices. It's a society where conformity is encouraged, and individuality isn't always welcomed. Physically, the world itself is harsh and fractured. The land below is chaotic and dangerous, while the surviving civilization exists in a protected fortress-like city, possibly high in the mountains or floating above the ruined earth. Technology here is advanced but unstable, a remnant of a once powerful civilization whose systems are now deteriorating. Within this world, you appear as someone deeply connected to knowledge and mysticism. You have the mind of an alchemist or a mage, someone capable of producing powerful results through spiritual or scientific understanding. But despite your abilities, you feel constrained by your environment and the responsibilities placed upon you. Part of you longs to break free from the rigid system and explore the wider world beyond it. Your motivations revolve around disrupting the current order and restoring something closer to the old ways of balance. However, you fear being manipulated or controlled, especially through the arranged marriage that binds you and your betrothed. Your future spouse is ambitious, rebellious, and not afraid to break rules to get what he wants. He can be bold, possessive, and even controversial, but beneath that intensity, he's driven by a desire to bring peace and stability to a fractured world. Your marriage begins as a strategic alliance rather than a romantic one. It's meant to stabilize society and create a public symbol of unity during a time of unrest. Neither of you are particularly happy about the arrangement at first, but this union carries a deeper destiny, one that could ultimately lead to restoring abundance and balance to the world around you. However, standing in opposition to this union is a powerful antagonist, someone highly educated, manipulative, and deeply knowledgeable. This person fears what your partnership could become and is determined to prevent your bond from strengthening. So what's the love story here for you, pile 2? We have 10 of Cups reversed, clarified by 8 of Cups reversed, King of Wands by 5 of Pentacles, Strength by 2 of Cups, 8 of Wands by Queen of Cups reversed, and I also drew a Citadel card for both parties to see who is coming to the table with what in this arrangement. You have the path list, which makes me believe that you have the skill set or knowledge to make the progressive change you desperately need and want, but you're blocked. There's an obstacle in your path. Your betrothed has the puppeteer, which with this card, their deal in the relationship is to own up to their mistakes and transgressions to smooth over and heal an important alliance or relationship. So first, with the 10 of Cups reversed, we see that no one's happy about this union at all. That's abundantly clear. If anything, you can't stand each other at all and feel that being bound to one another completely stagnates your life. With you being a powerful manifester and creator with your works or life purpose, as well as having a desire to venture out into the world and explore new horizons, you now feel really resentful. You could blame your family or nation for putting the responsibility of marrying this person on you, ultimately limiting your life and freedom. The 8 of Cups reverse could be showing us that you're actually forced to return home after venturing outward. Your betrothed, being ambitious himself, feels completely the same. This whole thing just feels forced. But then something happens. With the King of Wands, clarified by the 5 of Coins, your betrothed actually steps forward and shows real leadership and a vision for the future that deviates from this 5 of Pentacles energy. There still is a sense of isolation from each other, but his action-orientedness sparks a major shift. This could be from a promise he makes or an authoritative move in an effort to put his best foot forward, not only with you, but for the betterment of everybody. For example, let's say famine strikes a distant colony. Now the Hierophant government tries to force you both to sit and look pretty, show up for political events to push an agenda of peace. They tell you there aren't enough resources to really allocate, but they're sitting on plenty. You're pissed because, of course, they don't care that one of the colonies belongs to your clan or your side of things, right? You expect your spouse to ignore the matter, but your spouse says, nah, screw that. He storms storehouses, gathers a secret battalion and a ship or something and breaks the law, bringing food to the starved. Plus, he does it of his own volition. He didn't need your permission, leaving you out of the entire operation because he doesn't have time for your petty mouth, despite how soft your lips look when you frown in his direction. And with Strength showing up clarified by the 2 of Cups, it seems like his efforts actually strengthen your bond. In the imagery, he's showing up as the snake, powerful, foreboding, venomous if needed. And these traits allow you to take the center stage and give you the strength and support to accomplish what you really need to do. It looks like you're empowered and placed on a pedestal. Of course, with the 2 of Cups, this fosters a more emotional side of the connection and an equal partnership, equal feelings, and even romance between you two. With the 8 of Wands, things actually end up taking off. Sparks begin to fly after the slow burn of your rivalry and the tense relations of your opposing factions. This would come from a very intense romantic moment, like a raging moment of passion while you both are traveling and can't take the tension anymore. With Queen of Cups reversed, this may stir up emotional instability or insecurity after it happens on your end. But with the 8 of Wands ending the spread, it seems more like any doubts and confusions get swept away in the fire. So with all this information here, here's the plot for your story that I devised from just what we have. The world below was nothing but ash and monsters. a scar left by wars that once tore heaven and earth apart. Now, the last remnants of humanity cling to survival in fractured, magical high-tech sky cities, some ruled by human mystics, the others by half-demon conquerors. To heal the broken earth, a marriage is forged between rivals. You, the heir of a people bound to ancient sacred magic. He, a warrior born of blood and fire, the sovereign-elect, feared as an abomination, yet relentless in his hunger to unite the world. But old wounds run deep. Your betrothed's people are seen as plunderers, yours as liars. And between you stands an enemy from the past, one who slayed your master and twisted their sacred knowledge into a dark doctrine. This sorcerer whispers that demons are the true heirs of the world, and he will stop at nothing to see a new world order rise. Torn between duty and desire, suspicion and surrender, you find yourself bound to a man who breaks laws and tradition as passionately as he caresses your skin. Between you burns a constant push and pull, resentment tangled with an attraction neither of you fully trusts. What begins as a political bargain becomes a dangerous entanglement of love, conquest, and betrayal. Your union could restore peace, or it could set fire to what little remains. Alright, y'all, let me know what you thought about this reading, and we'll see a lot more content like this, only if you like and subscribe. Of course, practice makes perfect, but if you give me the opportunity to make more content, it'll only get better from here. I'll see you guys in a new reading. Bye. Yo, right quick, this is pre-reading Alise, breakfast Alise. Before we begin your pile, I just want to give a quick note about how this reading came together. This reading is something that I worked on over months, going back and forth, returning to, leaving, returning to, and I did quite a few spreads to build out each pile's story and world. So you may notice that I don't always directly mention specific cards you may see on the screen or every element that was pulled. Just know that the energy is incorporated from those spreads. It will be integrated into your interpretation. Again, it's just that I stepped away, I returned, and all that. So when you do some things a little disorganized, it may not look that way when you finish. But I promise you, it is. Everything that I picked up for each pile is actually integrated into the pile. That's just the nature of working on something a little bit more complex. Originally as well, it was the plan to release this reading and then also release, of course, the video portion here, and then release an extended 18+ short story reading on my Tarot website about the first night between you and your betrothed. So the consummation of the marriage within your story, so you will. So the extended will be available. I don't know when. I'm working on it right now. I don't know when, but let me know in the comments, shout out, make requests, and maybe I'll actually, pump that ish out. So other than that, let's continue into your pile. All right, so let's start off with position number 1. What type of government does this land have? 10 of Pentacles reversed here. This is a society that's structure has seen unexpected change, a crumbling of its foundation, as well as a break from tradition. There could be tribes that govern themselves, no established governmental authority, and a free market based on trust. There may not even be an established currency, consistent laws region to region, or even a military. With the 10 of Pentacles reversed, people still fight over resources and wealth, so even disputes are handled personally and left out of the public eye. With little crime coming out as a key characteristic of this society, it's possible that we're dealing with an anarchist or libertarian state. I drew clarifiers asking how this came to be, and I got King of Pentacles reversed and the 10 of Swords. This to me clearly stated that in the past there was a greed, a hoarding of wealth and resources by one or multiple people. The people may have revolted, multiple factions may have taken arms to either seize wealth for themselves or redistribute it in their idea of fairness. There must have been a lot of bloodshed and a lot of death, but ultimately this new free society came out on top with the heads of the greedy displayed as a warning of the past. For position 2 of this spread, we have who's in charge. And judging off of the previous card, it may feel like no one's in charge. I honestly think no one is. But if we just dive a little further, I think the story will unfold. Here we have Death reversed with the Forgotten from the Citadel Oracle, as well as Companion reversed in Martyr. What I'm getting from this is that in your Dark Fantasy Story Pile 3, the society you are a part of may have reached a point of like operating without a sovereign or a leader to where they feel they need to elect or appoint one, but they fear repeating the past. As a collective, this region still feels the sting of betrayal, and they don't trust that an individual can act selflessly without power. Or this region doesn't feel like an individual can act selflessly when in power. It's likely in your story someone is already being considered, but they feel the pressure of the expectations. They don't want to be seen negatively, and they don't want to fail. It's possible as well that whoever is chosen to lead at the time we're in your story, they're also very resistant to being selected. They may be trying to avoid it entirely. What I was intuitively receiving as well is the kind of sacrificial aspect where the person to be placed in charge is expected to sacrifice something. Because the Martyr card says learning the transcendent nature of service to oneself or a cause. It gives an energy of this society indoctrinating itself to be ready to sacrifice, and that its chosen proxy or leader must be willing to jump in and sacrifice themselves if necessary for a higher purpose. One storyline that is pushing through the energy is the idea of the society not necessarily electing a ruler or leader, but instead preparing a proxy to be sacrificed to maintain peace, which we'll explore later when we get a little bit more information. So what are the people like as a collective? We have the Wheel of Fortune reversed. These are people who are in complete upheaval. Their lives have been disrupted in some way, and they don't believe fate is on their side. This could be because resources are still scarce at the end of a brutal war, or because after a period without structured authority, they feel their rights and their livelihood are challenged with the thought of one person or a group of people having power. Another paper scrap you got for your pile was political tension, which sums up the energy here a little bit. Like, the people of this world have contrasting views regarding how society should move forward. But one of the paper scraps you got at random also says there's very little crime. So these aren't violent and disorderly like people regardless of the lack of law and structure in their society. And I asked what is the physical environment like for this spread as well. Now, also with the scraps I drew at random, we also received Sun Never Sets and Frozen Wasteland. And at first I was super confused, but then I realized that the sun doesn't rise or set in places like Sweden, Norway, Canada, and Alaska here in the real world. So I think it's safe to say that in this fantasy world, you live in an environment in the far northern region of the planet. Like, think of like an ice cold tundra, a midnight sun that sits right at the top of the horizon, offering very little warmth. And places like that have herds of like horned animals with like thick woolly coats that gather at bogs in the warmer south, while white foxes roam the upper tundra, scouring for fish and birds. White foxes could roam the upper tundra, scouring for fish and birds for their young snuggled away in dens. With the Magician reversed, we may assume the environment has like a tricky factor to it. Intuitively, I was getting like that the society at the center of your story is not well equipped to live on ice. They don't have the tools, or the land does not yield resources. And with the last paper scrap I picked up for you guys, or drew, we were given Ancient Library. And this makes me wonder if in the past this society knew how to cultivate the land, build upon it, and they had steady progress, but knowledge was lost during the brutality they experienced or as their society collapsed from this previous greed. However, they may be trying to get that knowledge back. And this knowledge could even just be how their society used to operate peacefully back in the day before the greed and the destruction took over. They're trying to rediscover their golden age. What type of technology do they have? We have Eight of Swords. They have little that doesn't do much. The sword in the card for the deck, like I have here, it looks hot, as though it's headed straight to the forge. So to me, this highlights that they have reached the Iron Age, but like some of the swords in the card are also broken during the forge or after. So it could be that the missing knowledge could also be very technological as well. This society feels stuck or held back by technological limits. But what is your role? We have 3 of Cups reversed, the Pilgrim, and the Mediator. To be honest, looking at the cards intuitively, I was getting that your role is directly related to your arranged marriage. Because in this spread, the archetype cards have been screaming really interesting storylines at me. Or a really interesting storyline at me. With the Companion card and the Mediator card, we see a couple. Now, we already know that there is political tension among groups and factions of this region, and there is an attempt to establish order through choosing or electing someone. And with the Forgotten card, I'm getting vibes of an old deity or an eldritch terror waiting for someone to plummet down to them. And it's a very sacrificial energy. So my understanding so far for your pile is that you are someone chosen to marry a member from a rival faction that is then meant to take a pilgrimage to an ancient forgotten place to be sacrificed or to appease a deity or higher power. But who exactly is this betrothed of yours, this dark fantasy male? Your person is very interesting, pile 3. They are a lot more 3-dimensional compared to the previous piles, in my opinion. This person you're arranged to marry is someone who may have devoted their life to a faith or belief, but they secretly don't believe in it. And with the child wounded, this may be because of something bad that happened to them or a loved one in their childhood. The archetype card's shadow attribute labels a person as pessimistic and lacking a belief in miracles or magic in the world. But as you can see, we have the Priest card from the Citadel deck. This points to a person of faith. Now, with the Priest card, they do have a belief that the bad in life serves a purpose, and they attribute everything negative they have experienced to who they are in the current moment. But something tells me that they have devoted themselves to a belief or a school of thought, principles, a philosophy that they truly secretly doubt. And although they doubt it, they still hope that the works they do in alignment with said faith or philosophy will bring a just reward to them. It's pretty interesting. With the Judge card, we can see that they have morals and value the equal distribution of power as well. So your spouse, for example, may have inherited or assimilated the ideas your society has regarding living in balance and fairness with their fellow man. This belief may also be one of the tenets of their current faith. Looking to the Puppeteer card, though, your person is seen as someone who struggles with their own social skills. They sometimes put their foot in their mouth or come off as rude, and seeing as they are being labeled mean by the index cards they got, I'm not far from the truth. However, the Puppeteer card also carries an energy of shame. This card not only speaks of clumsy social skills, but also making a major mistake in the past and having to not only own up to it, but pay a huge relative price in a way to appease the scorned party. And if we look at the other index cards, we see that their family is disliked and they are marked as a traitor. This leads me to believe that your spouse, their family, and maybe even their clan or group were banished. They were isolated or shamed for a past transgression. And maybe they were on the wrong side of history and they fought to take over the region for themselves. Maybe they were partially blamed for the state the society is in now. This could have brought them immense pain as a child, coupled with the harsh Arctic environment you all might live in, or even just their banished lifestyle, if that's true. You can see where their pessimism and disbelief for miracles comes from. What I'm also getting from the Puppeteer card is a manipulative energy, despite the card being upright. I feel like your person could feel small in the world, like their will has true influence, or that they need to be the chess player and the pawn to get what they want. But ultimately, there is a larger fate at hand that is outside of their control, if that makes sense. I feel like your person could feel very small in the world, like their will has no true influence, or that they need to be the chess player and the pawn to get what they want. But ultimately, like, there's a larger fated hand that's truly outside of their control. So, like, what's the point, you know? We also have the pathless card, and it points to them being a little directionless in life as well, and not knowing where to go or how they're going to get there. They could have a goal, which we'll figure out what they want in a second, as well as you, but they may be experiencing roadblocks or have been presented with a very, very difficult choice regarding how they're going to get to what they want. With the tarot, we also have Ten of Swords reversed, Knight of Cups, and Nine of Pentacles. I think your betrothed has been through a lot. They could have seen war or the horrifying results of it in their past, but they ultimately want peace and restoration in the world. And with the Knight of Cups, they're a romantic, despite being considered mean, and they know how to charm when they want to. When they court you, they may take it seriously and choose romantic gestures that are sweet, warm, and they warm your cheeks and they wet your inner thighs. But what's interesting with the Nine of Pentacles is that I believe your spouse here is on a pedestal for sure. And when you meet them, they will have lived a life of luxury by the time you see them, having been taken care of, almost fattened up, like a little pig to be eaten later. They may have a few attendants that stand by for their every need, and there's a gracefulness, but also a fierceness about them as well. And from the rest of the index cards, it's like they have, big energy and a very good sense of humor too, at least. So much talking can make your voice dry. Let's get back into it. Let's look at the motivations and fears, as well as who the antagonist is in the story, and why you guys are also arranged to be married to your betrothed. So, in this story, what do you want? What motivates you? We have Four of Cups reversed. Four of Cups reversed is interesting because it points to someone wanting motivation or something to look forward to when they lack interest in life. I had to draw another card to get a better understanding and got the Dancer from the Citadel deck. And the Dancer is a card of personal freedom, acceptance, and self-expression. So you may feel bound by circumstance or societal pressures, either through its structure or via the marriage or arrangement itself. Either way, you prefer to live authentically outside of what binds you in this story. What do you fear? I think you fear the state of society remaining the same. You also got the Wise One reversed, which points to conforming to certain rules in the past and wanting to break from them. What you already conform to is unorthodox, but feels harmful to your freedom and authenticity in a way. But what you want to move toward is your own unorthodoxy, so you are afraid you won't achieve that. What does your spouse want? Remember I said you're meant to go on some pilgrimage? When I saw the Six of Swords, which is a straight up travel and pilgrimage card, my intuition straight up was like they don't want to go on that pilgrimage either. They want to turn right the hell around and abandon the physical journey you're meant to go on together. And what do they fear? I think they fear what is at the end of that physical journey. I genuinely think that there is a deity or a creature that you and your betrothed are to be sacrificed to, and that thing is the literal devil. It's evil, and your spouse is afraid of it, rightfully so. I think they're also afraid of being seen as selfish and out of touch, and out for themselves to be, just a detriment to the people. So who's the antagonist in this story? Get a load of this. We have the Angel. So this antagonist presents itself as this guiding light, a helper without any expectation of a return on their investment. But you see how the Devil card for your spouse's fear also has wings? And I'm thinking that this antagonist is something that positions itself as a savior or benevolent god of your people, maybe helping them survive the harsh environment they're in, or promising a return to a golden age of prosperity. But what it asks for in return, or manipulates to receive, is much more sinister. Okay, the random scraps I drew for your pile says they're, forgotten ruins, or usurper, from a different world, and forsaken. This entity could be a powerful spirit, a creature, or terror that has manipulated and bound your people, wearing the mask of a benevolent angel while truly being a forsaken and corrupt being. I think it watches, because there was imagery of eyes earlier. I think it may have a temper, and I think it could have played a part in your region's earlier societal collapse. We have the sailor reversed, and this antagonist is also trapped some way. With it being from a different world, it could have accidentally been cast out to your land or summoned without a way to send it back. And the knowledge of its origins could be hidden in that ancient library that we spoke of earlier. This thing is old, okay? And with the Sailor card, it's been slowly plotting its own freedom. The Nine of Pentacles. I wonder who showed up as the Nine of Pentacles before. There is something abundant, nutritious, and very filling about who and what the Nine of Pentacles represent. And what do they fear? The Five of Pentacles reversed. I think they fear your people not needing them or relying on them anymore for whatever they are getting out of the deal. So let's just sum up the world building story here. Your story takes place in a quiet, icy tundra region where people live simply and avoid disrupting what came before them. The world has already experienced a major downfall or conflict in the past, something no one speaks about directly, but everyone remembers enough to be cautious about. There are no real rulers. There are no kings, no leaders. Instead, the community appoints a symbolic representative to keep balance and tradition. Someone who holds responsibility without true authority. In this story, that person is you. Your marriage is arranged, not for love or politics, but to uphold a long-standing custom believed to protect the land. Your betrothed was raised to accept this role in the rituals tied to it as well, though they carry a quiet sense of loss or resignation. At the center of this tradition is a being or a force the community considers sacred. It provides warmth and safety, but there is an underlying sense that it demands the people pay a price they may not have bargained for. The tension of this story begins when either you or your partner begins to question whether this being is truly a protector or something more sinister. So what's the plot synopsis that I've came up with for you, Pile 3? Loosely based in some places, but tightly reflective in others regarding the energy we picked up for this whole reading. In a frozen world where the sun never sets and the land itself is ancient and watchful, a fragile society struggles to rebuild after a bloody revolt that shattered its former rulers. The people now live without sovereigns or armies, clinging to uneasy freedom while factions argue about what their future should become. In the center of this tension stands you, chosen not as ruler, but as a symbolic offering, bound by tradition to marry someone from a rival faction and undertake a sacred pilgrimage meant to preserve the peace. A dutiful woman on the outside, your clan is ignorant to the radical principles of freedom and skepticism toward tradition that you possess. Your betrothed is a complicated figure, a priest in title, yet secretly doubtful of the faith he serves. Branded by the sins of his family and haunted by a painful childhood, he carries the reputation of a traitor and the burden of redemption. Your marriage is meant to be an act of sacrifice, two lives bound together to appease the mysterious power the people believe protects their frozen homeland. Yet both of you sense the truth. The deity your society worships may not be a savior after all, but a manipulative entity feeding on fear and devotion. As you journey together across the tundra toward the forgotten ruins where your sacrifice must take place, what began as a political union between two reluctant participants becomes a quiet alliance between people who see through the same lie. Together, you must decide whether to fulfill the role your people demand or defy the ancient force that has held your world hostage for generations. Alright, y'all, let me know what you thought about this reading, and we'll see a lot more content like this, only if you like and subscribe. Of course, practice makes perfect, but if you give me the opportunity to make more content, it'll only get better from here. I'll see you guys in a new reading. Bye.